So we finally have the trailer for Capone, a movie which will center on the life of infamous Chicago mobster and bootlegger Al Capone. Though unlike previous Al Capone movies, this will center on the gangster after he has served a decade or so in prison. So in other words, when he's old and suffering from syphilis, and when he was examined by his physician, it was concluded that Capone had the mentality of a 12-year-old child. The movie will be intercut with flashbacks to Capone's violent past, and stars the hugely popular Tom Hardy in the role, who is no stranger to playing real-life gangsters and criminals, having already played the likes of the Craze brothers, both of them, and Charles Bronson, the prisoner, not the actor. The movie was filmed all the way back in 2018, and director Josh Trank has something to prove after his disastrous Fantastic Four movie in 2015, and this is supposed to be touted as something of a comeback for him. For a long time, Capone was called Fonzo, but has recently had its name changed to something much more recognizable. Other things we know is that the movie will be rated R, which is nice. Expected though, obviously. It's also going to be released in a month or two on video on demand, which is quite bizarre and very anticlimactic for a film that many were waiting for such a long time, and many imagined it would have some big release, maybe even being an Oscar contender. I'm not going to go into it too much, I talked about it already in my last video, but there are many theories as to why the movie is being released on VOD. According to the director himself, I believe, whether this is true or not, who knows, it's only being released on VOD for a limited time, and then they hope to release it in theatres at a later time when the coronavirus has died down. It's quite a pain in the arse that this movie has received this fate, especially seeing as though The Irishman went through a big hullabaloo where it ended up not having a wide release in cinemas and was instead released on Netflix. Maybe it's me, guys, maybe I'm cursed or something, because I don't actively look forward to too many movies. I usually take them as they come, but I was really looking forward to one big movie in my life, The Irishman, and the pre-release of that film was a disaster, from the film being delayed again and again, Joe Pesci turning it down numerous times, the film needing astonishingly expensive de-aging CGI effects, and ultimately the lack of a wide cinema release. And now this film, which I was on the lookout for, is being released online instead of cinemas, and this might be the fate of two other movies I'm really looking forward to, the Sopranos movie and Scorsese's next film, Killers of the Flower Moon, which apparently is in big trouble as it's too expensive and might be picked up on streaming services, just like The Irishman. Anyway, enough waffling. The trailer. So the trailer was released by Josh Trank himself on one of his social media accounts. This is the version that a few trailer YouTube channels have put on their account, and even though if you set it to 1080p quality, it still looks fuzzy and low quality, like the video is still buffering. It's not exactly a pristine trailer release, is it? I know actors and directors have dropped trailers loads of times in the past, but those are social media accounts where the account isn't really controlled by the actor himself, it's more of a PR thing. Trailer releases are an event in of themselves these days. We even have those stupid trailers for trailers. But here we're seeing a director dump a trailer with shit quality on his account. The reason why I mention it is, if this movie was a big film that the studio thought was going to be a big hit, or at least a decent film, you'd think they would have put a bit more effort into the marketing. Is this a clue for us that it just isn't a very good movie? A HD trailer was released later on by Vertical Entertainment, but by this point most of us had already seen the poor quality version. The trailer itself is quite short and fast paced. There's loads of quick fire shots, it's something of a montage, quite a few shots of an older Capone sitting in the back garden of his house with a cigar, and not a lot of information about the plot. It's chaotic, lots of noise, lots of incomprehensible dialogue, lots of screaming and shooting, and what looks like a lot of dream sequences for Capone. Just a quick disclaimer, it goes without saying anyway, everything I say in this video is pure speculation. Trailers can of course be completely misleading, and we might like or dislike an element of the movie in the trailer, like say Tom Hardy's makeup for example, but then when we watch the film it might make sense, because of, let's say, the tone the movie is trying to go for. Let's start with that anyway. Hardy's makeup. I don't think it looks very good. It looks pretty obvious that this is a guy in makeup. He kinda looks like if he dipped his face into his pool, everything would just come sliding off and we'd see Eddie Brock emerge. Hardy shared some startling images of himself as Capone a few months ago, and he looked like some toxic waste mutant monster. Like someone asked H.R. Giger to design a Dick Tracy character, but a lot of people thought, well, this is him just messing around in the makeup chair. Let's wait for the trailer to make a judgment. But clearly it's exactly the same in the film. Maybe we'll get used to it when watching the movie. I mean, he does look a lot better during the flashback scenes, though not by much, but it's still quite off-putting. He doesn't look like Al Capone, and he doesn't look like someone from the time period. He looks like a parody, or a zombie who walked into the set of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shoot. He actually looks like a monster. And maybe this is what they're going for, who knows? Because Al Capone in the trailer does seem to have a monster-esque vibe going on around him. Like he's this pantomime villain in an otherwise orthodox 1920s Chicago crime film. In a way, this larger-than-life wacky presentation of Al Capone is in line with previous Capone renditions like Robert De Niro in The Untouchables, who himself came off as quite a cartoonish comic book character, or Stephen Graham in Boardwalk Empire, whose character seemed high on coke throughout his screen time, which, to be fair, he was. One of the hardest things for me, though, is that I can't stop seeing Tom Hardy, looking like a half-assed drag queen. Again, something we might easily get used to when we watch the film, but I can't see past the actor to get to the character. All of the other supporting actors seem quite natural and authentic when it comes to the characters they are playing, from the way they look to the way they sound. But I can't see Al Capone. I can just see Tom Hardy looking like he's about to put on this elaborate costume and is going, "Hey guys, look at me in my over-the-top makeup." It's a similar problem to 2018's Gotti movie, where John Travolta looked like a parody, or Black Mass with Johnny Depp, or most recent Depp roles for that matter. Look at this shot, for example. He actually looks like a devil, like Frankenstein's monster. I will give them one thing though. In Capone's later life, he was addled with syphilis, which does leave sores all over the body. But the makeup looks pretty bad in the scenes where Capone is younger as well, so who knows? I want to be optimistic, and to give the film the benefit of the doubt. Let's say we saw the trailer of Once Upon a Time in America for the first time, and it was just a lot of shots of Robert De Niro and old man makeup. I mean, that's probably a bad example because the makeup is quite subtle in that film and it isn't bad at all. But if a trailer showcasing him all old came out today, we'd be all over it for how fake it looks. But in reality, nobody ever mentions the makeup in Once Upon a Time in America because no one cares. The film is far too good to focus on such a small, minute detail. Maybe the makeup makes sense in the universe and can be justified. Like say for example, there's a scene where someone catches Capone putting makeup on to hide his scars and his blotches. That would mean the bad makeup has a reason to exist and we all judged it way too early. And then there's the voice. Why they chose to give Hardy such little dialogue in the trailer is in of itself a mystery. By the way, as I mentioned in the previous video, Hardy's inspiration for his Capone voice is quite aptly Bugs Bunny, of Looney Tunes fame. But from the little we hear of Hardy, I'm not too impressed. Again, it seems like Hardy putting on an accent, rather than his character speaking naturally. Plus, it seems like this is going to be another film where Hardy mumbles and grumbles his way through the runtime. In terms of what little we can get from the trailer in regards to the film's plot, it looks like the story, or at least a subplot of the story, is a suggestion that Capone was faking his mental illness, Vincent Gigante style. An interesting direction to go in. Maybe that dude with the glasses is hired or forced by the FBI to look for evidence for Capone faking his illness, hence him being found by Capone in the night, walking around his house. Perhaps then the two talk about Capone's life, and that's when the flashbacks kick in to Capone's memories, fantasies, and nightmares. I wonder if that shot of Capone all bloody, surrounded by dead party guests is an actual memory, or it's part of a dream sequence, or a combination of both. Either way, clearly a huge portion of the film is focused on Capone's later life. The concept seems quite interesting, telling the story of an older Capone riddled with syphilis and incorporating that into the flashbacks. Maybe that's why it looks over the top, because most of what we see is in his head. It looks like an interesting film. Not interesting in a good way necessarily, and not in a bad. But clearly they're going for something distinct here. They're not trying to tell a straight biography. So even if it isn't a good movie, it looks like it will be worth watching just to see what they were going for with the concept and the tone. I am looking forward to it. Whether it's the best crime film of the year or a completely bizarre disaster, it looks like it's going to be interesting. Not everything has to be high art, artsy-fartsy and stone-faced. Credit to it, this looks trippy and weird. But it could also end up being an embarrassing film where Trank tries too hard to be cool and different, and could also sink the director into obscurity. The opening line was terrible, wasn't it? The difference between Al Capone and Hitler. Hitler's dead. It's such a crap line, so flat and just nonsensical. And I don't like the dialogue in general in the trailer. like the colloquialism when someone says full-blown dementia. People didn't talk like that back then. That kind of dialogue belongs in films set in the modern day. And very few things grind my gears like people in movies not talking like they should have done during the time period or thereabouts. Just a fleeting thought I had in my head. Do you know who I think would have been an amazing Al Capone? Pretty much perfect for the role. James Gandolfini. He would have been brilliant as Al Capone. So what did you think of the trailer? Are you looking forward to the film? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.